You know that feeling. You are doing 70 miles an hour on the interstate, and the sky just opened up like God Himself decided to dump an entire ocean on your windshield in the span of 30 seconds. The semi-truck in front of you is kicking up a wall of white spray, and your headlights are bouncing off a curtain of rain so thick it looks like static on an old television set. You hit the wiper stalk, the blades swing across, and for 2 full seconds, before the rubber even finishes its arc, your entire windshield turns into a blinding sheet of white fog. A ghosting haze so thick you cannot see the lane lines, you cannot see the tail lights ahead of you, you cannot see anything except a luminous blur of reflected light that makes your brain scream danger. Your knuckles go white on the wheel. Your foot hovers over the brake. You are not driving anymore. You are guessing. And you know what the worst part of that story is? You did everything right. You went to the auto parts store, you bought that famous yellow bottle with the confident marketing and the promise of crystal clear visibility. You sprayed it on, you wiped it in, you buffed it out. You spent $20 and 45 minutes of your Saturday afternoon believing you had solved the problem. And within 2 weeks, that coating turned into a thin, oily, translucent film that your wiper blades now drag across the glass like a squeegee full of Vaseline, making a sound like a cat being stepped on, skipping and chattering and streaking until you are genuinely convinced that something is mechanically wrong with your car. Nothing is wrong with your car. Something is wrong with what you were sold. And today, I am going to blow the entire rain repellent industry wide open because the solution to crystal clear, water shedding, visibility maximizing glass has been sitting in your bathroom cabinet this entire time, and it costs $2. Not 20, not 40, $2. And it works on a molecular level that the corporations selling you those glossy bottles absolutely do not want you to understand. So lock in, because what you are about to learn will change the way you see rain forever. And I mean that completely literally. Let me start by explaining the actual scam, because calling it a gimmick is being too polite. When you look at the ingredient list on a premium glass water repellent, and I mean actually look at it past the marketing language and the dramatic claims about hydrophobic nanotechnology, what you are mostly reading is a list of alcohols. Isopropyl alcohol, ethanol, sometimes a carrier solvent that evaporates before you have even finished buffing. The functional silicone compound, the thing that is actually supposed to bond to your glass and create that water-shedding surface, represents a fraction of what is in that bottle. The rest is filler and delivery fluid. That delivery fluid evaporates in days. The silicone layer that remains is extraordinarily thin, measured in nanometers, and it has no mechanical adhesion to glass. It sits on the surface like a thin layer of wax on a hot pan. Sun exposure degrades it. Temperature cycling cracks it. Your wiper blades, sweeping back and forth dozens of times per minute in a rainstorm, physically grind it off the glass stroke by stroke. By the end of week 1, you have half a coating. By the end of week 2, you have patches. By the end of the month, you have nothing except the chemical residue that those evaporated alcohols left behind, a microscopically thin layer of dried solvent byproduct that your wipers now drag across the glass instead of gliding over it. That is where the chattering comes from. That is where the ghosting haze comes from. The product did not just stop working. The product created a new problem while it was failing. And here is what nobody in the industry wants to say out loud. That chemical residue, that dried silicone and alcohol byproduct sitting in the microtexture of your glass is slightly tacky. It grabs at the rubber edge of your wiper blade every single time the blade passes over it. That repeated grabbing and releasing is what creates the skipping motion. And rubber that is repeatedly stressed and released at high-frequency fatigues and cracks at an accelerated rate. Your wiper blades are being destroyed by the product you bought to improve your visibility. That is not a side effect. That is a feature. Because the auto glass chemical industry and the wiper blade replacement industry exist in a symbiotic ecosystem where one product's failure generates demand for the other. It is a closed-loop revenue machine, and you are the fuel that keeps it running. Hit that subscribe button right now, because what this channel does is pull back the curtain on exactly this kind of engineered dependency. We are a community of drivers who read ingredient labels, who understand basic chemistry, and who refuse to be harvested by companies that package inconvenience as innovation and sell it back to us at a 4 to 1,000% markup. We are not conspiracy theorists. We are people who understand that a corporation's first loyalty is to its margin, not your visibility, not your safety, not your wipers, and definitely not your wallet. Subscribe and join every driver who has decided that understanding the science is more valuable than trusting the marketing. Now, let me give you the actual science, because this is the part that will make you genuinely angry in the best possible way. Get a tube or a can of standard white shaving foam, not gel. I will explain why that distinction is critical in a moment. Just plain, white, old-school shaving foam, the kind that costs less than $2 at any pharmacy or grocery store. Look at the active ingredient. Right at the top of the list, you will find stearic acid. Stearic acid is an 18-carbon saturated fatty acid, and it is one of the most remarkable natural surfactants that chemistry has ever produced for practical applications. Here is why it matters for your windshield specifically. Glass looks smooth to your eye, but at the microscopic level, glass is a landscape of valleys, craters, and irregular surface topology. These microscopic imperfections are the reason water seems to stick to glass rather than sheet off it instantly. When a water droplet lands on glass, it is not sitting on a flat plane. It is anchored into hundreds of those tiny craters, creating a mechanical grip that surface tension then exploits to keep the droplet in place. That is why you get individual beads rather than sheets. That is why those beads get pushed by your wiper blade rather than flowing freely off the surface. Stearic acid, when worked into glass with mild friction, does something extraordinary. It fills those microscopic craters. The fatty acid molecule has a structure that bonds on one end to the silica in the glass surface and presents a nonpolar hydrophobic tail on the other end. Nonpolar means water, which is a polar molecule, is chemically repelled by the surface, not just physically discouraged, actively repelled at the molecular interaction level. When you have a complete layer of stearic acid molecules filling the surface texture of your glass, you have converted your windshield from a polar, water-attracting surface to a nonpolar, water-rejecting surface. Rain does not bead on that surface. It sheets. An entire section of the windshield sheds water as a single continuous film rather than as hundreds of individual droplets that your wipers have to physically push away. The optical result is not the scattered light distortion you get from beading. It is clear, uninterrupted vision even in heavy precipitation. And because stearic acid is filling the physical texture of the glass rather than sitting on top of it as a thin film, it is mechanically protected. Your wiper blades pass over the glass, and they are not scraping the coating off. They are passing over the filled surface. The durability is in the physics of the application, not in some proprietary nanobonding chemistry that a marketing team invented. The lubricants in the shaving foam, the ingredients that make the foam slick enough to allow a razor to pass over skin without tearing, also happen to make the glass surface frictionless for your wiper rubber. That is the part that eliminates the chattering. That is the part that makes your wipers glide rather than grab. You are not just waterproofing your glass. You are lubricating the entire wiper glass interface with a substance that is literally designed to make things slippery. Let me now completely dismantle the premium glass repellent category one more time, because I want you to have every piece of information you need to make a decision the next time you are standing in an auto parts store aisle. The isopropyl and ethyl alcohols that make up the bulk of most rain repellent formulas are aggressive solvents. They are chosen as carriers because they evaporate quickly and they do help deposit the silicone compound initially. But repeated exposure to high concentration alcohol is a documented rubber degradant. Rubber compounds used in wiper blades, especially the natural rubber and chloroprene blends used in budget and mid-range blades, undergo a process called oxidative hardening when repeatedly exposed to alcohol solvents. The rubber loses its plasticizers, becomes stiff, and the edge that is supposed to flex and conform to the glass curves instead develops microcracks and rigidity. A rigid wiper blade edge cannot maintain consistent contact with the glass surface. It skips, it leaves streaks. It creates exactly the visibility problems you applied the repellent to solve. Most premium wiper blade replacements, run between $15 and $40 a set. A quality glass repellent runs between $15 and $25 a bottle that will be functionally depleted in 3 to 4 weeks of normal use. The math on an annual basis for a driver in a wet climate is not trivial. You are looking at well over $100 per year cycling between two products that are destroying each other and your visibility in the process. Against $2 of shaving foam that, applied correctly, will last 6 to 8 weeks per treatment and will leave your wiper blades in the same or better condition than when you started. Now, here is the application, and I want you to follow this exactly because the execution is as important as the product. Start with a clean, dry windshield. If your glass has existing repellent residue or water spot mineral deposits, do a quick wipe down with undiluted isopropyl alcohol on a clean microfiber first to strip the surface back to bare glass. Let the glass dry completely. Dispense a generous amount of the white foam shaving cream directly onto the glass. You want enough to cover roughly a 2-foot section at a time. Take a clean, dry, lint-free cloth, a cotton cloth works well here, and begin working the foam into the glass using circular motions with firm pressure. You are not just spreading it, you are working it into the surface texture. Keep going until the foam disappears and the glass appears almost dry. The foam will thin out and vanish as the stearic acid is worked into the glass pores. At that point, take a clean, dry, high-quality microfiber towel and buff the surface vigorously. You are removing the excess and polishing the molecular layer flat. The glass will look almost artificially clear when you are done. Work your way across the entire windshield in sections. Now here is the warning, and I need you to take this seriously because ignoring it will cost you money and potentially your windshield. You must use plain white foam, the cheap, unscented, basic white foam. Do not use blue shaving gel. Do not use green shaving gel. Do not use any colored gel formulation marketed for sensitive skin or cooling properties or any other modified formula. Here is exactly why. Colored shaving gels contain artificial dyes, and they frequently contain humectants, which are sugar-based compounds that help the gel retain moisture against skin. Those dyes and those sugar compounds are completely harmless on skin because skin continuously sheds and renews itself. Glass does not. When UV radiation from sunlight hits a sugar compound that has been worked into the microtexture of glass, it initiates a caramelization process. The sugars undergo thermal and photochemical degradation, and they produce a brownish-yellow, sticky film that bonds into the glass surface. This is not a smear you can wipe away. This is a chemically altered layer of degraded organic material that has effectively been baked into your windshield. The colored dyes, particularly the synthetic blues and greens used in gel formulations, do not evaporate with the carrier. They remain in the glass texture, and in direct sunlight, they can create a persistent tint across your field of vision. Removing a caramelized dye and sugar contamination from a windshield requires professional glass polishing with cerium oxide compounds and significant labor time. That repair bill will run between $75 and $200 depending on your market. White foam only, unscented, basic. If it does not look like the product your grandfather used before a shave, put it back on the shelf and find the one that does. 7 days after your first application, drive through the first serious rainstorm you can find and pay attention to what your windshield does. You will see water land on the glass and immediately gather into large, fast-moving sheets that roll off the surface, not tiny beads that cling and distort your view of oncoming headlights. Not a hazy film pushed around by chattering rubber. Sheets, moving fast, clearing your field of vision faster than your wipers can cycle. The difference between a $20 silicone spray that is destroying your wiper blades and degrading into a visibility-impairing residue, and a $2 bathroom staple that fills your glass at a molecular level and makes driving in the rain genuinely safe, is not marginal. It is the difference between guessing where the road is and actually seeing it. If you know someone who is afraid to drive at night when it rains, someone who white knuckles through every downpour because their windshield turns into a ghost show every time the wipers swipe, share this video with them right now. Not because it is interesting, because it is information that could prevent an accident. The rain repellent industry is not going to tell them this. The wiper blade industry is not going to tell them this. This channel will. Share it, save a driver. And the next time you walk past that pharmacy shelf with the $2 shaving foam, pick one up. Your windshield is waiting for you.